Oh, you beautiful little catastrophe. I seriously hope you see this before they reach out, before the notification buzzes, before that name lights up your screen like a fuse on a stick of dynamite you forgot you were holding. Because I need you to understand something critically, deliciously important before you respond. And I'm not saying this to rattle you. Well, maybe a little. I'm saying this because I've watched this exact pattern detonate so many times. And there is a very specific choreography to this dance if you want to land the ending you've been rehearsing in the dark. Please, do not respond until you've absorbed every single word of this. I mean it. Whatever impulse is clawing at the inside of your chest, that frantic little itch to fire back the second they reach out. I need you to sit with it. I need you to taste it. And then I need you to set the phone down and actually marinate in what's happening here. Can we be honest with each other? Like truly, no mask, honest? Because I've been watching this pressure cook for a while now, and there are some things you deserve to know. And I do love giving people what they deserve. Here's the thing, and pay attention because I only say the fun stuff once. I know. You think you know what's about to happen. You've been running the simulation in your skull like some little mental movie marathon. You've rehearsed the conversation so many times it practically has a director's commentary. But what's actually coming is going to zig where you expected a zag. And I really, truly mean that. There's a twist here that most people completely fumble when they're standing in the middle of the fire. And that twist isn't what you think it is either. The twist isn't that they're going to reach out. You've already sniffed that one coming, haven't you? Clever creature. The twist isn't even that they'll say something that blindsides you. No. The twist is about you. It's about what detonates inside you the moment they actually do it. And I genuinely, and I use that word sparingly, treasure, hope you see this before that moment arrives. I want you to really feel this with me. Let me walk you through the wreckage of what's been happening beneath the surface. Because I know there's been an absolute symphony of noise in your head. There's been a lot of wondering, a lot of this relentless, gnawing question that refuses to clock out and go home. Do they think about me? Do they miss me? Did any of it even register on their radar? And I'm here to tell you, your gut hasn't been gaslighting you. You've been feeling something shift for a reason. It's not your imagination running a fervor. It's not copium. Something has genuinely been rearranging itself on their side of the fence. But here's the part that nobody ever brings up at the dinner table. The part that rewires everything once you actually get it. You see the person you've been thinking about? They've been locked in an internal cage match. And it's not the fight you think. You probably assume they've got it all sorted, confident, unbothered, certain about what they want and what they don't. And that's the first lock I need to pick for you, sweetheart. Because the truth, they're more rattled than you are right now, more uncertain, more spooked. And I know that sounds like a punchline. I know when you replay how they acted, when you remember every time they pulled away or wore that mask of indifference, it seems impossible that they could be the one trembling behind the curtain. But that's exactly the show that's playing. I have to interrupt. This is a life or death shift. You survived the ritual, but are you using the power? Pick up The Evolution of the Anomaly, 73 pages to rewrite your DNA. Grab it in the description. Now, let's get back to why you're really here. Let me sketch you a portrait of what's really unfolding inside them. There's this person who's been performing fine, like it's a full-time job. They've been acting strong, acting moved on, acting like your connection didn't leave a crater in them. And it's exhausting. It's bone-deep exhausting to keep that costume stitched together. And they've been wearing it for a while, maybe weeks, maybe months, maybe longer than either of you would care to admit. And every single day, the seams fray a little more. And the fraying happens at really inconvenient times, like at 3 a.m. when they're alone and there's nothing left to drown it out. That's when the flood comes. That's when they're lying there wide-eyed, running every conversation back, every moment, every syllable they wish they could have swapped out for something better. And they keep looping it in their head like a song stuck on repeat that won't let them sleep. Think about the last time they saw you. What they said, what you said, what they should have said, and they are absolutely torturing themselves with all the alternate endings they'll never get to film. That's not something they're broadcasting. That's not making the group chat or the Instagram story. That's the 3 a.m. confession nobody else is privy to. And here's what's really delicious about this whole mess. They didn't plan on still feeling this way. They honestly believed they'd metabolize it. They thought time would do its little healing trick and eventually they'd wake up, and you wouldn't be the first ghost haunting their morning thoughts. But the opposite happened, didn't it? Time made it worse. The feelings got heavier. The memories got louder. The missing you turned into this low-grade fever they can't shake. And they're genuinely baffled by it. They keep interrogating themselves. Why can't I just let this go? Why do you keep showing up in my head like rent-free real estate? Why does every time I think I've finally moved past it, something drags me right back to the starting line? You need to understand what it's like standing in their shoes right now. Precious. They keep having these moments. Small, stupid, insignificant moments that somehow hit like a freight train with no brakes. They'll hear a song that tastes like you. They'll walk past a spot you shared. They'll see something you would have found hilarious or fascinating. And in those moments, the weight of the missing crashes back down on them all over again, catches them completely off guard. Because they were not expecting to feel a single thing, they thought they'd closed that chapter, dog-eared the page, shelved the whole book. But the truth is, the connection wasn't finished. It was just put on pause. And things left on pause have this nasty little habit of pressing play on their own. Eventually, there's something else cooking too. Something making all of this more urgent, more volatile. There's been a recent crack in the foundation. Something changed that pushed everything buried right up to the surface. Maybe they saw something that lit the fuse on a memory. Maybe they dreamed about you and woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. Maybe somebody dropped your name in conversation like a grenade with the pin already pulled. Or maybe, and this is the one that really does the damage, they've started feeling like they're losing you. Losing you in a way that feels permanent. Final, no sequel permanent. And that feeling of genuinely losing you has become the biggest accelerant for everything they've been stuffing into the basement of their psyche. For a long time, they operated under the assumption that you'd always be there, that there'd always be another window, another shot, another moment. And that assumption gave them a kind of counterfeit safety net. It let them keep you at arm's length because, in their mind, they could always circle back whenever the mood struck. But something cracked that certainty wide open. And when certainty evaporates, it really unravels people. Deeply. because suddenly they're staring down the barrel of a possibility they never actually prepared for. That they might have lost you, for real this time, that maybe you're not standing in the wings anymore, that you might have actually genuinely moved on. And that possibility, it's eating them alive. Now, let's talk about what happens next. Because I know that's why you're really here. You gorgeous disaster. You want to know what's coming. You want to know if they're actually going to make the move. You want to know what you should do when they do. And I'm going to give you the unvarnished, no-filter truth about all of it. But you need to be braced for what I'm about to lay down. Their communication is coming. I can feel it building like thunder behind a cloud bank. It's been gathering mass for a while now. It's like watching a crack spread through a windshield. Starts as a tiny chip, almost nothing. But it spiders outward, and by the time you notice, it's too late to stop the whole thing from shattering. That's what's happening on their end. Something has been building. They've been drafting messages in their head. They've been rehearsing how the conversation might go. They've been trying to scrape together the nerve to actually press send. And they're getting closer and closer to that tipping point where the silence hurts more than the risk. But here's where the twist tightens. And this is the part I really need you locked in for, darling. When they do reach out, it's not going to look the way you've imagined. It's not going to be some grand cinematic declaration. It's not going to be them spilling everything all at once like a broken piñata. That's not how this operates. People who've been bottling their feelings for this long don't just uncork all at once. They dip a toe first. They reach out carefully, tentatively, testing whether the water's warm or if you've turned it to ice. And if you respond the wrong way, too fast, too eager, too thirsty, without any sense of your own gravity, they'll flinch right back into their bunker. And you'll be stuck running on the same hamster wheel all over again. Please, don't respond until you've taken in every word. I'm dead serious. And I don't say dead lightly. Whatever happens, however they reach out, whatever words they choose, do not reply the second you see it. Do not telegraph that you've been camped out by your phone like a kid on Christmas Eve. Do not let them see that they've been living rent-free in your thoughts. I know how brutal that restraint is. I know the impulse to respond the instant their name surfaces on your screen feels almost physically impossible to resist. But the entire trajectory of this situation, every single domino, hinges on how you handle that first moment. Let me level with you about something, Angel. When they reach out, they're going to be dissecting your response like it's evidence. They're going to weigh every word. They're going to hunt for signals. Signals that you still care. Signals that you're still accessible. Signals that you've been waiting. And if you hand them all of those signals on a silver platter the moment they knock, they'll feel relieved, sure. But they will not feel transformed. They'll feel like they still hold the same remote control they always had. And nothing in the dynamic between you will actually shift. What they need to feel is something entirely different. Something that actually penetrates the armor. They need to feel that you have genuinely evolved. That you're not the same person who was parked in the waiting room for them. That you've grown, leveled up, shape-shifted in ways that make them deeply uncertain about where they stand with you. And uncertainty. That's the real magic trick, Buttercup. Because certainty lets people stay lazy. Certainty lets people take you for granted, like your furniture. Certainty is the death of evolution in any connection. But uncertainty is what makes people lean in. Uncertainty is what makes people actually try. This is the part where most people fumble the bag hard. They think that when someone finally reaches out, the move is to throw the door open and roll out the red carpet. They think they need to perform how much they've missed them. They think the play is to make it frictionless, seamless, easy. And I get why. I really do. You've been starving for this. You've been manifesting this. You've been craving this connection back with every fiber of your being. But the way to actually rebuild the connection in a way that has roots, not just sparks, is to not make it easy. It's to demonstrate that access to you isn't automatic anymore. It isn't guaranteed. It isn't on demand. It has to be earned. And I can feel you flinching at that. I can feel you spiraling. What if I push them away? What if they get discouraged? What if they bail? And I need you to trust me here, because chaos is my mother tongue. Someone who genuinely wants to be in your orbit, who genuinely aches over losing you, who genuinely wants to stitch things back together. They will not be scared off by you raising the bar. Let me pause right here. If anything, it'll make them want you more. It'll make them respect you more. It'll make them value you more. Because when you require people to meet your standard, they either rise or they retreat, and either way, you win. Because if they retreat, they weren't built for what you bring to the table. And if they rise, you get the version of them that actually shows up with intention. And that, my little tempest, is the only version worth having. Let me drag you deeper into this because there's a layer you haven't excavated yet. The person who's about to reach out. They are actually terrified that you won't respond. Let me unpack that. That's the secret they've been carrying around like a ticking clock in their chest. They're terrified you've moved on. Terrified you've erased them. Terrified you've stopped caring entirely. And that terror is what's been compounding and compounding and compounding until it's finally going to force their hand. But here's the thing. They need to sit in that terror for a beat. I'm not heartless. I'm just selectively compassionate. They need to actually feel what it's like to believe they've lost you, because that's what's going to rewire their behavior. That's what's going to make them show up differently this time around. You need to really absorb what's been happening on their end. They've been hauling around regret like luggage they can't check. Regret about not choosing you sooner, about retreating, about letting fear drive the car, about listening to people who didn't have a single investment in their happiness, about hurting someone who showed up for them with genuine, unguarded care. And that regret has been stacking up like debt with compounding interest. Every memory of you adds to the balance. Every reminder of what they squandered adds to the balance. Every hollow night spent alone adds to the balance. And eventually, the account overflows. The pressure demands release. And that release is what's going to show up as a message, a call, a hey. But here's the critical part. If they reach out and you respond in a way that screams, "I've been sitting here this whole time with the porch light on," the pressure on their side will bleed out too easily. They'll feel this tidal wave of relief. And relief, gorgeous, is not the same thing as growth. Relief lets people slip right back into their factory settings. Relief lets them take you for granted again, because they'll believe you're still the same person who'd accept whatever crumbs they scattered. You don't want to give them relief. You want to give them a reckoning. a moment where they have to actually sit with what they did, what they fumbled, and what they need to do differently to earn their way back. That's not cruelty, that's architecture. You're building something that can actually hold weight this time. So please don't respond until you've consumed every last syllable of this. I'm being wildly serious. I know you might be tempted to skim, to jump to the punchline, to just grab the bullet points and bounce. But the texture is what matters here. The granularity. This whole situation has more layers than an onion wearing a winter coat, and I need you to feel every single one of them before anything happens. Because the way this unfolds is dictated by your energy. It depends on how you show up, and I need you to show up as the person who knows. Not just thinks, not just hopes, but knows in the marrow of their bones what they're worth. Not intellectually, not as some affirmation you read on a motivational poster, but viscerally, in your gut, in the place where conviction lives and doesn't apologize. Let me tell you something intimate about this dynamic, love. When people lose someone who genuinely saw them, the real them, not the curated version, they don't just miss that person. They miss the experience of being truly witnessed. They miss the sensation of being accepted without the performance. And they miss the version of themselves that only existed in the glow of that connection. And that's the part that's really gnawing at them from the inside out. They miss who they were with you. They miss the way they felt in your atmosphere. They miss the person you made them believe they could become. And that's a tremendously powerful thing to be the source of. Now, I want to talk about what it really means to be ready for this, because I've been architecting toward the twist this entire time. But I need you in the right headspace for the reveal. The twist is not about them. The twist is about you. The twist is that you've been so consumed with whether they're going to reach out, whether they still care, whether there's oxygen left in this connection, that you have completely overlooked what's been happening inside you. You've been waiting for them to transform. You've been waiting for them to have their big awakening about what they lost. You've been waiting for them to finally show up the way you always fantasized. And in that waiting, you've been putting your own metamorphosis on ice. The twist is that the person you've become while waiting is not the person you want to be when they do reach out. You've constructed fortifications you didn't even realize you were engineering. You've armored yourself in ways that have actually sealed you off. You've been so terrified of catching another wound that you've stopped being open in the way that real breathing connection demands. And if you don't dismantle that before they come knocking, you're going to blow the whole thing up without even knowing you lit the match. Can we be straight with each other? Because there's something I need to say, and it might sting. The way this has been operating, it isn't operating. The waiting, the hoping, the forensic analysis of every microsignal, the trying to decode what they're thinking based on what they post or ghost, the compulsive phone checking, the rereading old messages like they're sacred texts, the romanticizing how it used to be. The whole apparatus has been keeping you locked in a holding pattern, and holding patterns are exhausting. They drain you emotionally, physically, spiritually, and worst of all, they keep you from living your actual right now, happening whether you participate or not life. And here's the punchline, and this one actually lands. People are drawn to people who are fully, unapologetically alive. People gravitate toward motion, toward creation, toward someone who's building and evolving and becoming something new every day. And when you're trapped in this holding pattern, you're none of those things. You're just waiting.